Hello, welcome to MathPro by Bloom Academy. Okay, I'm going to go over the last test we had and solve some of the problems. Okay, the first part I want to do is let's go to questions 14 to 20. Let me do that first. You're simplifying expressions. The first one is question number 14. It says a squared plus 2ac divided by 4a. Okay, so you look at the numerator, you look at the denominator and see if you can simplify them before. Okay, so the a squared plus 2ac, you look at it, we have 2ac. A squared means a times a. So a is common to both. You factor it out. Okay, so you try to factor some of these expressions to make it easier. You factor a out. When I factor one of the a outs, I have one here left, and I remove the a over here. So I'm left with a plus 2c. You can check your work by distributing through the a to see if you get a squared plus 2ac, which is a times a will be a squared plus a times 2c will be 2ac. Okay, so we factor it out to simplify it. So now we have a times a plus 2c over 4a. Now look, here, because of the plus sign, we have two terms, a squared and 2ac. Okay, because of the plus sign, plus the addition and the subtraction sign creates terms. So now these are two terms, so you cannot mark out a here separately and then a there separately and say your final answer is a plus 2c over. Here it probably just works out to be okay, but don't do that. Don't cross out, don't jump terms to do your divisions. So here, now that you factored your a out, what do you have? This whole thing, this a squared plus 2ac, now has become one term because of the multiplication. Okay, the parenthesis, everything is one term right now. Now I can divide my a's, and I'm left with a plus 2c all over 4a as my answer. A plus 2c all over 4a. Okay, let's do the next one. C squared plus c over cd plus d. Again, the key to these exercises, try and factor it out. So I see c squared plus c. If I take one of the c's out, I'm left with c plus 1 in the parenthesis. And then here I take the common term, I factor it out. D, I will be left with c plus 1 outside. And now I can just, c plus 1 is common to both. I divide it, and my answer is c over d. Okay. Number 16. What do you see at the bottom? Should be used to this by now. Difference of what? Two squares is the sum times the difference. A plus b over a minus b, and then a plus b will cancel a plus b, and I'm left with 1 on the top. Remember, a plus b right here is times 1. So there's 1 on the top over a minus b. Okay, so now this one here again, okay, what's the trick? The trick is to try to factorize. Okay, this is a quadratic expression. So what? Factors of negative 6, that will add up to negative 1. What are those? Okay, it will be negative 3 times 2 will get you negative 6. Negative 3 plus positive 2 will get you negative 1. So that's what we get. And then what we have p minus 3 on the top, and then we divide. Remember, we had 1, 2, 3 terms. After we factor it, this whole thing becomes one term because it's multiplying. And now I can just cross out p minus 3, and my final answer is p plus 2. And I'm done. Okay. Now, what if this expression was, it was p plus 2 plus p minus 3 over p minus 3? Can you say this? Okay. No, you cannot. You cannot say that. That would be wrong. Okay. So when there's plus or minus sign in between, it creates terms, and you cannot just divide like that. Okay. What about m squared minus 9 over m squared minus 7n plus 12. Okay, so remember, when you have x plus y over x plus y, put parentheses, they are the same, so you just cross out. What you're doing is, okay, you're not crossing the x and then you're not crossing the y. They're the same, so you just mark it out. So if you have x plus 1 over x, you cannot say the x divides the x, and therefore you're left with just 1. Same thing, m squared minus 9 over m squared minus 7n plus 12. You cannot say that the m squares divide, and then you are left with minus 9 over minus 7m plus 12. Okay, because these are two terms, these are three terms here. You cannot just pick these and just divide by the m squared and then you say that's the answer. You don't do that. So be careful, okay, when you have plus or minus in between uh, terms and constants. It creates different terms. Okay, what about this one? So here, remember this? This is what? Difference of two squares. It becomes m plus 3 times m minus 3. It was two terms here. It becomes one term over here. And then what? We factor out the bottom part of it, factors of positive 12. That will add up to negative 7. What are those? It's negative 3 times negative 4 will give you positive 12. And when you add those two, will get you negative 7. So this is what we have. We have one term on the top, one term on the bottom. I can just cross off my m minus 3. My final answer is this. Okay. So if I had something like this, okay, if it was something like this with a plus in between these two here, that would have created two terms. Okay. And so if you have something like this, which is not the case, but you cannot say this. Okay. So be careful. Be careful. And then the final two here, also I see students crossing out the q squared divided by q squared. You cannot do that. You have three terms on the top, three terms on the bottom. Factor it out first. Okay, because if you do that, okay, then you're going to have minus 2q minus 15 over minus 3q minus 10. This is wrong. Okay, so factor out the top, which becomes q minus 5 times q plus 3, and then q minus 5, q plus 2. What happens now? We have one term, okay, because it's now a product, not addition and subtraction. When it's a product, it is just one term. And so now I can cross out my q minus 5. My final answer is q plus 3 over q plus 2. And remember here, you cannot say the q's cancel and your final answer is 3 over 2. No, you cannot do that, okay? Q plus 3, these are two terms here. So you cannot just divide the q's and leave the 3 right here without dividing it by q as well. So don't do that. And finally, this one too, I saw some students doing a squared and then they cross out the a squared because they have a squared on the top, but a squared here, it's got what, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms here. When you have 4 terms, what should come to mind? What should come to mind? Factorization. Factorization by what? Grouping. Okay, so you group them, you factor it. This is what you end up with. A minus B over A plus B. Okay, so this ends this. The rest of the solution to the exercises will be provided to you in Google Classroom. Keep on practicing. Okay. And what do I tell you? All things being equal, you shall what? Bloom. Welcome to Bloom Academy. Bye-bye.